So, in lieu of the recent admissions scandal, I think it's important that we address quite possibly one of the most blatant abuses of, I don't know what to call it, proximity with Mr. Wesley Crusher. Because, I mean, I always assumed that there was something going on between Jean-Luc and Beverly, but let's just assume there's not. And it really is that, I mean, did he get some strings pulled? Or is he truly, like, uniquely deserving? Or is he beyond even, the day-to-day?
Well, the Federation stopped using money by then, so maybe Beverly was pulling some other kinds of strings.
Picard's heartstrings.
Yeah, because at that point, the Ferengi were the only ones really using the gold-pressed latinum, and I think the Federation kept it on hand, but they always made fun of money. I mean, they started from episode 1 making fun of money when Q was on there.
Yeah.
How it was archaic and...
Yeah, during the trial.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I feel like it came up with somebody else too, besides Quark. Who else?
I mean, I feel like Jake Sisko was not the benefit of... He did not receive the benefit of, placement.
No.
He said he got stuck out on Deep Space Nine. And that's not a bad thing, because that was actually a very interesting story. But, that story ends with him standing out on an observation area, like, waiting for his dad to reappear, because, his dad is no longer linked to the timeline. He's a multidimensional being.
Yeah, and like Keiko was the ship's teacher, right?
Yeah.
So it's not. Well, I guess she's
cool.
She was a doctor. I thought
she's a scientist,
a biologist.
Yeah, she's a legit scientist.
Yeah.
She went to Bajor.
It wasn't like a bad professor to have.
No, but just one. Just one.
Yeah.
Maybe, and it's advanced tutoring from everyone else, of course, whenever available. But that's.
He spent most of his time causing trouble, though.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, he and Rom ended up becoming a fucking starship captain. So
comparing Jake Sisko to Wesley Crusher.
Yeah, Jake Sisko is like a revolutionary and a rebel and a journalist and a counterintelligence
Did we ever find out
operative.
Who his dad was?
Who?
Wesley's.
Oh, I mean, I think that at some point in the storyline they introduce his father in some kind of hologram.
Oh, that's right, because he had died.
Yeah.
That's right.
But he's not around.
Yeah. I didn't know if Wesley's dad hopped on a shuttle to go get some cigarettes and never came back briefly.
Lottery tickets. Space lottery tickets.
Can just use the replicator, Dad.
No, it's not the same. You gotta get them at the source.
Gotta go to Bajor.
We gotta go to Risa.
Oh, man. Wesley was one of those things where I think when you were saying they brought him on to appeal to kids, I think that was kind of more the angle, because they did start doing those more kid-oriented episodes that weren't even about Wesley. But I also, I feel like Star Trek was always sort of aimed at a teenage audience in the first place. Well, not necessarily aimed, but in Next Generation, it was obviously meant to, like, connect the old people who love Star Trek and were going to all the cons and stuff still.
Yeah. I think that it's I think TNG made a very good effort at maintaining the level of complexity of interspecies relations. And
but it's still super campy.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch like season 1, it's very camp, and I've forgotten how much season 1 was camp.
Oh, it's
and then it's like really bad. I mean, not bad, but you know, Star Trek's always kind of campy when it's not taking itself too seriously.
I think that's kind of what was good about it, is that it was still kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
There was still a kind of a misogynist commander who was always trying to bed down the alien chick, the hot alien chick, and Riker delivered that aspect of Kirk, and so then we could separate that part of Kirk from the part that is actually a brilliant leader, and so that's how we get Picard, because he's not out there trying to bed down the green Gemini chick.
Yeah. Well, Riker was, but that's where even in Picard's holodeck adventures, he was always trying to solve mysteries and problems and shit, and it wasn't actually, he would have a female interest, but he would just kind of ignore her.
There was always a distraction. He was like, just get out of my way so I can finish this puzzle.
Pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah, because then there was that planet coming back to Wesley Crusher, where Wesley fucked up and was trying to show them how to play football or some shit. And he broke a rule and they were gonna kill him. So that's where it is, I think in other cases we can say, yeah, Wesley had some privilege that other kids might not have necessarily gotten.
Yeah, they were gonna kill him.
Yeah, they were put off Wesley.
He was allowed to operate the Enterprise.
Yeah.
He could pilot the Enterprise as a kid.
Yeah.
He got to manipulate the warp core as a child. He got to use the freaking dish, the array thing, to conduct his science experiments. What the? There were people who had spent their entire lives in Starfleet, with Starfleet, conducting research so that they could get aboard some program on the Enterprise to conduct research. They spent their entire lives doing that stuff, and here's this little kid who just walks in with the doctor.
Well, and I think what ended up happening was with that, with what you're saying.
I love it. I always thought it was great. I loved his character.
No.
Shut up, Wesley.
I think so many people took that perspective that they ended up killing the storyline that they were originally going to take him, because the Traveler was the guy who was like shifting phases or whatever.
Yeah.
And they brought it back later.
Yeah, so and then they allowed him to go on and leave the show.
Yeah, but
and he saved the recolonized Native Americans on some other planet, and then they left too. I think
this is the Maquis.
I think the Maquis are involved. It's like a new colony of Native American people. Yeah, I think the Cardassians are involved, man, Wesley's story was complex.
And I think they would have made it more complex to set it up and finish it out, but because the fans did not respond well to having a kid just waltz onto the show and be able to, do that shit, and kind of wrote him off and on.
When that show was originally being broadcast, and I was watching it, like I always thought Wesley's part of the show was the best, because he's a kid. That's why he's there. As an adult, when I rewatch The Next Generation, like, I enjoy it more when Picard gets annoyed by, here's this little brat, like, giving him suggestions. Like, well, if you scan
Shut up, Wesley.
It's so good. Yeah, that's why I think it's not that big of a leap that he might be Jean-Luc Jr. No, man. Like, what was it? It was Insurrection. Was it Insurrection when they're flying around and Picard's like, oh, Mr. LaForge, you should check the fucking warp core, the warp field. I think it's out of alignment. And he's like, you're right. How did you know? He's like, when I was an ensign, I could feel a misalignment of .03, blah 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 blah. And it's like, huh. And you know, it's you know, it's like it's him being like, I'm a badass.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Wesley could manipulate the warp core too. Like,
huh. That's not.
And you know, if Cisco is like somehow like a extra dimensional being, maybe all humans are capable of that, and Picard was just never fully realized because he didn't have the benefit of some psychotic. You know,
well, Cisco had he
had help.
He became that through the wormhole beings, right?
He had
like,
guidance.
Gave them that, or
like
ascended to it.
His mom was from the wormhole, and so he had like a direct path. But he's also human still.
Mm-hmm.
Deep Space Nine was an incredible story.
Well, now that they're bringing back Picard's new series, I wonder where they're going to go with it. Like,
yeah.
They may go in some crazy shit where...
Well, what I read is that they're picking up right after... so, at the beginning of Star Trek, before... let's see... Before Star Trek Kelvin starts, Spock is trying to save Romulus because the sun is going nova and they're trying to inject the red matter and prevent the reaction, but he's too late. And then he gets chased back in time, and then Star Trek Kelvin timeline begins. And apparently, so Spock is gone, Romulus is destroyed, and they're trying to fix things, help the survivors. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's before all that happens. Maybe it hasn't happened yet.
It makes sense though.
But I'm pretty sure that's where it begins, because that's the last thing that we know about the primary storyline, is that Romulus is dying and their sun is going to go nova. And they're probably running out of options. And considering Picard was like the Federation's chief negotiator, diplomat, like pretty much the head diplomat, it makes sense that even after retiring from commanding a starship, that he would still be tapped to go and work out really complex. God, it's hard to entire species-wide concerns, and help to come up with the logistical solutions to manage a planet worth of people.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's such a... It's like we think about, we've talked about like what it would take to send people into the stars, and we can't go in there to colonize. We've got to be able to be somehow self-sufficient. And I always think it's interesting because Star Trek seems to be somewhat self-sufficient, because they've got like antimatter conversion and faster than light travel and matter replication, and they managed to do away with the need to harvest from someplace, except for the dilithium.
What is it, deuterium?
For the ship's metal.
Yeah, because in Voyager they have to like find it. And then, but in most of the other ones, you never see them like refueling. And that's kind of where, they've mastered replicating matter
up to a point.
But then the shit goes offline every so often. So then you have to, like in Voyager, they have to grow their own food and shit like that. So.
Well, yeah, that's Star Trek when you don't have any resources and you're out in the middle of nowhere trying to get home, versus Star Trek where it's like you have substations everywhere where you can go get fueled and resupplied and fix your ride, because you don't want to be in space with a broken spaceship.
Yeah.
That's like the scariest idea. It's like, let's go into deep space with a ship that's gonna break.
Yeah, your replicators stop working at full capacity, and you have to use them half the time or something.
Or it's like the computer tells you that your replicators are going to fail within some determined amount of time, and so now's the time to replicate everything you need to sustain a hydroponic or aeroponic growth operation and enough seeds to start so that if the first batch fails that you can keep going.
Doomsday replicating.
Yeah, you gotta prep a replicator.
Prep a replicator. Preplicator.
It only replicates the things that you need to engage in doomsday prepper activities.
Oh man. Somehow the replicator's not enough.
Yeah. Well, its batteries will run out. It'll run out of paste.
Yeah. Ink. Quote unquote.
The protein carbohydrate solution. It's a binary solution.
Everything is basically like a mozzarella stick.
Yeah, in its raw form.